They arrested her for faking SEAL service until the judge shocked everyone with this truth. The courtroom buzzed like a hive of angry bees. Judgment hung thick in the air as people whispered and pointed. Sarah Bennett, a petite woman with fiery red hair and eyes that glimmered with a mix of fear and defiance, sat in the defendant's chair, her hands trembling at her sides. She was accused of being the greatest con artist of the decade, a woman who faked her military service as a Navy SEAL for years. The press couldn't get enough. They called it the Great Imposter. What they didn't know was that behind those bright eyes lay a web of secrets so deep it could drag anyone down with it. As the judge entered, the room fell silent, a perfect contrast to the storm brewing outside. Rain lashed against the windows, making it feel as if the world outside was desperate to intrude. The judge, an imposing figure with a face like granite, took her seat, and the tension tightened like a noose around Sarah's throat. What kind of person pretended to be a hero? Voices rose again, some venomous, some curious, as they recounted stories of Sarah's outrageous claims. A heart-stopping tale of daring rescues, medals of valor that never existed, and the audacity to don the uniform, all of it laid bare like a raw scar, but there was something else, something lurking just below the surface. As murmurs rippled through the crowd, a vein of intrigue pulsated. You see, Sarah didn't just concoct false identities, she had allies, mysterious figures who seemed to know too much. Everyone in the room felt a strange chill as her attorney colored her defense with hints of conspiracy. Could it be that Sarah was entangled in something far bigger than anyone saw? The whispers grew louder, the eyes wider, and the truth became an insatiable beast. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The judge adjusted her glasses, gazing intently at Sarah as a shadow crossed her face. The murmurs quieted, anticipation electrified the room. Every eye was glued to the unfolding drama. Was she merely a fraud, or was there more? A name dropped, one of her alleged accomplices, sent a tremor through the crowd. Gasps followed like echoes in a canyon. The connection was undeniable, the implications dire. Silent glances and muted expressions suggested everyone sensed it too. Something was about to explode, and then, in that tense silence, just as the judge prepared to deliver her verdict, the door swung open with a crash. A figure, cloaked in darkness, stood silhouetted against the blinding hallway lights, holding something object. Gasps reverberated through the courtroom. What now? Who was this unexpected messenger, and how would their presence change everything Sarah thought she knew? The figure stepped forward, a whirlwind of dark clothing and shadows. As the crowd squinted to identify the new arrival, a collective gasp echoed throughout the courtroom. An officer of the law, his uniform gleaming despite the dim light, stood firmly at the entrance. In his hands, he held a document that appeared to be weathered and dog-eared, as if it had been through the ringer. The judge's brow furrowed, her voice steady but carrying an edge of uncertainty. What is the meaning of this interruption? Your Honor, the officer responded, his voice firm yet almost urgent, I have new evidence that could change the course of this trial. It's vital we see it before any judgment is passed on Ms. Bennett. Whispers cracked like dry twigs underfoot, and Sarah's heart raced. Her throat tightened as she wondered what could possibly be revealed now. Had her past managed to crawl out of the shadows to haunt her once more? The judge motioned for him to approach, her eyes piercing through the haze of uncertainty. As he stepped closer, he unfurled the document slowly, revealing faded letters and illegible signatures. Even from a distance, the atmosphere shifted palpably, as if the very air had turned electric. Your Honor, the officer continued, this is a classified report from a covert operation. It details a former SEAL operation linked to Ms. Bennett. There are discrepancies in her claims, but also there's more. The courtroom leaned in, breath held. What could this mean? Did Sarah really have ties to this world she had falsely claimed to belong to, or had she pulled off the most audacious lie imaginable on a grand scale? Your Honor, the officer's voice grew steely, there are indications she might have been involved in something much larger, possibly a network of operatives we have been tracking for years. Gasps erupted, painting the room with urgency. The crowd was electrified, eyes darting between Sarah's pale face and the officer's resolute demeanor. Seized by panic, Sarah felt her hands begin to sweat. What kind of web had she stumbled into, and who were these operatives? Are you saying she's not just a fraud but potentially a threat? The judge asked, disbelief lacing her tone. Exactly, the officer affirmed, his gaze steady. We need to delve deeper into this. If she has connections to this network, it could mean there are others involved. Sarah's mind raced. Panic clawed at her chest. She fought to maintain her composure. Was there a grain of truth buried in her lies, or had her fabricated heroics brought her to this moment of reckoning? The courtroom filled with murmurs again, a frenzied crowd grappling with the reality of a truth unspooling before them. Was Sarah a pawn, or a player in a game far more dangerous than any of them understood? Ms. Bennett, the judge finally said, the gravity of the situation resonating in her voice, we are not finished here. This now requires further investigation. As she banged her gavel, sending a shudder through the room, Sarah's heart thudded painfully against her ribs. The stakes had just been raised, and the walls were closing in. With a newfound urgency, Sarah looked around the courtroom, feeling the weight of glares that bore into her like daggers. What had she done? Unbeknownst to her, icy eyes watched from the back, hidden in the shadows. A figure barely visible, patiently waiting for the tumult of chaos to unfold. Little did Sarah know, the worst was far from over. As the gavel struck, sealing her fate in a way she could never imagine, a chilling thought gripped her: who else knew, and what would they do next? The gavel's echo faded into a suffocating silence, and Sarah felt as if the ground had been pulled from beneath her. She glanced to the left, catching a glimpse of her attorney's bewildered expression, a mixture of shock and determination flickering in his eyes. She could feel the weight of the crowd's judgment pressing down on her, a tidal wave of uncertainty threatening to drown her. Everyone, please. The judge spoke, her authority cutting through the murmurs that rose again like smoke. We will not turn this courtroom into a circus. Officer, explain the nature of this evidence in detail. Sarah barely registered the officer's nod as he began flipping through the document, aiming to substantiate allegations that could upend her life. This operation, he declared, was codenamed Silent Phantom. It involved highly classified intelligence activities, and Ms. Bennett's purported involvement is suspicious. The report shows names linked to deep undercover work. Each word felt sharper than a knife, and Sarah's stomach churned as he read the contents. Where did you uncover this report? The judge asked, her voice steady, though the tension hovered like a storm cloud. It was buried in a vault, Your Honor, amid a broader investigation into corruption within the agency. Our findings suggest that Ms. Bennett may have been used as a pawn in something greater, perhaps unwittingly, but we may never know. Sarah's pulse quickened with fear and disbelief. What did he mean by unwittingly? Had her lies placed her in a conflict she could have never imagined? The shadows at the back of the courtroom shifted, drawing her attention. For an instant, she felt the displacement of a breath, a deliberate stillness in the chaos. A figure leaned against the wall, seemingly unnoticed. But the intensity of their gaze sent chills racing up her spine. Ms. Bennett, you must understand the seriousness of what is on the table, the judge warned, her voice more grave now. We need your statement before we proceed further. Praying for courage, Sarah rose unsteadily, her legs trembling like they might give way at any moment. Your Honor, she began, trying to summon strength through the fear. I have never been part of any operation. I've only stopped, the officer interjected, his voice cutting her off like a razor. That's precisely what I mean. The connections you claim not just in your personal testimony but the very identity you have crafted are about to unravel. With every word, Sarah felt herself sinking deeper into a quicksand of despair. What could possibly justify her past, her inexplicable journey into this world of deception? She glanced at the crowd again, searching for any hint of understanding. But all she saw were suspicious eyes that filled with judgment. Why did you pursue this false identity? The judge probed, skepticism resonating in her tone. What are you hiding? The vulnerable panic surged inside her. It wasn't about hiding, it was about survival. She said, I had no choice. The past shadows everything. I only wanted to start fresh. A loud rustle erupted from the back, and Sarah's heart thudded. The figure she'd noticed earlier stepped into the light, revealing themselves a man with a grim expression that sent icy tendrils of dread through the room. Stop the trial. He shouted, voice steady yet commanding. I have crucial information that changes everything. Gasps filled the air, and all eyes snapped to him, drawn like moths to a flame. Was this the man who could finally unravel the tangled threads of Sarah's past? What do you know? The judge demanded, her gavel clattering ominously against the wood. Everything, he replied, his chilling gaze fixed on Sarah, including who truly orchestrated all of this. As the courtroom held its breath, Sarah felt a silent truth press against her chest, stifling her breath. Every possibility loomed larger than the last. What lay ahead could shatter her world completely, and she was caught on the precipice of it all, but one thought gnawed at her, suffocating her resolve. Did anyone truly know how deep this rabbit hole went? As the room erupted into chaos, with raised voices and clashing opinions, one thing stood painfully clear: whatever revelation the man brought forward could change the narrative forever. An unmarked path, riddled with betrayal and darkness, opened up right before her eyes. Did Sarah have the strength to face what was about to come, or had she finally danced too close to the flame? The answer loomed like a shadow, ready to engulf her completely. The man's voice sliced through the tension like a hot knife through butter. I know who planted the evidence against Sarah. His words echoed and ricocheted off the courtroom walls, sparking chaos like a lit match dropped into gasoline. Everyone leaned in, eyes wide. The judge's gavel thudded against the wood, demanding silence, but the underlying hum of disbelief was palpable. Sarah's heart raced. Could this man truly save her? Who are you? A voice rang from the crowd, igniting whispers. And how would you know? The man straightened, revealing a resolute expression framed by dark hair. My name is David Cross. I worked alongside Sarah in operations that were supposed to stay buried. In a moment, the rush of past memories flooded Sarah's mind. Panic merged with a chaotic rush as hope flickered dimly within her chest. You're from that unit? She stammered, suddenly grappling with the enormity of the situation. Yes, he replied, his voice steady, though the tremor of frustration underlined it. I have witnessed the conspiracies firsthand. The higher-ups wanted her out of the way. I've seen the manipulation they're capable of. The judge regarded him with keen interest, a mixture of wariness and intrigue in her expression. What do you mean by manipulation? Speak clearly. Sarah was set up. The operation she got caught in involved funding and decisions filtered from the very top. He gestured robustly, drawing everyone's eyes toward Sarah. They made her a scapegoat when things went awry. Sarah's mind spun. A scapegoat? Was this the key she'd been seeking? Panic and exhilaration swirled within her, creating a tempest that threatened to spill over. Mr. Cross, the judge said, composing herself, present your evidence. I have documents that illustrate the puppet strings being pulled, he stated, unwavering. I can prove Sarah was being monitored, not as an infiltrator but as an unwilling participant. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Sarah's attorney blinked, his eyes darting back and forth between David and her, caught between shock and excitement. If we had those documents, it could change everything. he murmured, barely more than a whisper. Then let me testify, David urged, taking a step forward. I can illuminate the layers of deception surrounding her. Opposing forces have been playing a game, and it's time the truth comes to light. The judge frowned. Your testimony could muddy these waters further. We need to consider stop. Sarah interrupted, her voice desperate and steadying. This is about me. My life is on the line. If he can help, if there's even the tiniest chance, then we need to explore this. The crowd stirred with renewed energy, a wave of curiosity sweeping over them. David's gaze locked onto Sarah's, a shared understanding grounding them both. But skepticism hung in the air like a heavy fog. Your Honor, Sarah said, finding her voice in the cacophony, I know I've made mistakes, but I did not do what they claim I did. I need to fight for my truth. The judge sighed, looking more torn than ever. The clock ticked ominously, the seconds stretching like an eternity. Let me just remind everyone, she continued, her voice cutting through the rustling noise. Each twist and turn in this trial has implications beyond tonight. We need to tread carefully. Just as she was about to call for order, a sudden commotion exploded at the main doors. The heavy double doors swung open, revealing a disheveled but authoritative figure, a woman wearing an FBI badge, her face tense with urgency. I need to speak now. This case could involve national security. Gasps erupted around the room again, and Sarah felt a chill grab her spine. The stakes had skyrocketed. What did this new player in the game know? Was it possible that the truth was more twisted than she could imagine? As the courtroom shifted focus to the new arrival, the air crackled with anticipation. Did this mean salvation, or another devastating blow? The implications cascaded through Sarah's mind like an unending loop. With every heartbeat, her future teetered perilously on the edge. This was just the beginning. The path to redemption now carved through layers of betrayal far more sinister than she had ever known. Would she find clarity or sink deeper into the labyrinth? The question loomed wider than the shadows that danced around her, waiting, always waiting, for the final revelation. The courtroom fell into a stunned silence as the woman stepped forward, her FBI badge glinting under the harsh fluorescent lights. She breathed in deeply, her eyes darting between Sarah, David, and the judge, as if seeking an ally in the confusion. Agent Mitchell, she asserted, addressing the judge with urgency. You need to consider the information I've uncovered. This doesn't just concern Sarah, it goes beyond her case. National security is at risk here. The word sent a ripple through the crowd. Sarah's heart raced. What was she about to say? Would it clear the air, or only thicken the plot? National security? David echoed, eyebrows raised. What does that have to do with anything happening here? Everything, Mitchell declared, her voice growing steadier as she spoke. This isn't merely about a setup. It's about a far-reaching conspiracy involving several high-profile individuals who've leveraged their power to orchestrate this entire mess. Sarah's name became collateral damage along the way. Murmurs surged through the audience as they shifted their attention to Sarah. She felt their eyes, heavy with expectation. Could she truly be swept up in something this extensive? Your Honor, Mitchell continued, her tone now commanding, allow me to present my findings. If we proceed without transparency, we could dismantle a web of deceit that stretches far into our own government. The judge lowered her gavel with newfound authority. The pervasive atmosphere of uncertainty morphed into tension. Proceed, Agent Mitchell, she commanded, her voice firm but laced with caution. Turning to the screen at the front of the room, Mitchell clicked a remote. The overhead projector whirred to life, and images flickered on the wall. A series of documents, coded messages, and photographs flashed before startled eyes. Sarah leaned in, desperate to comprehend what it all meant. Sarah was monitored not because she was guilty, but because she stood too close to uncovering the truth, Mitchell explained. Evidence points to a shadow operation within the unit she served, a covert initiative mislabeling the intentions of its own agents. Do you have proof? The judge interjected, concern etched across her face. Yes, Mitchell replied, unwavering. Here are the operational files. They detail how Sarah was trapped in a scheme with enormous implications involving both allegiance and betrayal. David's eyes widened. She was just a pawn, then. Mitchell nodded, casting a glance at Sarah. But a pawn that has become a dangerous liability. We need to protect her from further attacks against her. And find out who's behind this. It was him. Shouted a voice from the rear. Silence fell as every head turned to see a figure emerging from the back, his face pale but frantic. He's the one who set her up. I overheard him discussing the plan. Faces shifted. The crowd pulsed with renewed outrage. The accused, a man Sarah had barely registered, attempted to back away but was halted by the nearby marshals. Get him! Mitchell ordered, striding forward. The courtroom erupted into chaos. People stood, shouting, confusion brewing into anger. David tried to intercede, waving his hands for calm, but the shouts drowned him out. Sarah's mind reeled. Who was this man? Could he be the key to understanding the entire plot? As the marshals dragged the accuser towards the door, Mitchell turned toward the judge. This is evolving quickly. We cannot proceed without full disclosure of the individuals involved. Then we must act fast, the judge declared, eyes glinting with determination. Bring the man forward. As security wrestled the accused closer to the front, the air was thick with tension. Sarah felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The threat was clearer now, but so was the danger of uncovering dark truths, just what lay behind the veil. Was the upcoming revelation the salvation they all hoped for, or would it expose a darkness they weren't ready to face? The courtroom, a remnant of order, braced itself for the storm, with hearts pounding in their chests. They were unprepared for what happened next. The accused opened his mouth to speak, words ready to spill forth, but would they bring freedom or destruction? The accused, a wiry man with eyes darting like a cornered animal, hesitated as he scanned the room. Fear crackled along the edges of the chaos. The courtroom, once a place of solemn deliberation, now felt more like an explosive powder keg. Listen. He croaked, raising his hands. You don't understand. Enough. Mitchell barked, her authority echoing off the walls. What do you have to say that will change the gravity of this situation? He swallowed hard, his throat visibly constricted. I was forced. They made me. They were going to kill me if I didn't play along. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Sarah's heart thundered. Was this the moment of truth or another layer of deception? The judge's expression hardened, eyes narrowing on the man as she leaned forward in her seat, the urgency of the moment thrumming through her veins. Who are they? The judge pressed, her voice slicing through the air. The syndicate, he stuttered, glancing nervously at the marshals closing in on him. They control everything from the inside. I overheard them talking about Sarah. She's just a pawn in their game, the same as I was. That's enough. David shouted, the anger boiling in his voice. You can't just make these accusations without proof. Or without consequence, Mitchell interjected, taking a step toward the man. You're saying there's a network of operatives, people in power. Even I can show you. He cried, panic flooding his tone. I have evidence. They have eyes everywhere. I came to warn, to protect her. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted. The tension morphed into something raw, almost electric. Was he a delusional liar, or did he hold a truth that could dismantle everything they thought they knew? Who do we trust? Sarah whispered to David, gripping his arm as if it was an anchor in the storm raging around them. I don't know, he replied, eyes narrowing in on the accused's frail figure. But if what he says is true, then we are standing right at the edge. The man flinched and continued. They know about this hearing. They know about all of you. It's bigger than just Sarah. There's a stop sign for all of this, and they'll erase anyone who gets in their way. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the door. A group of men in dark suits rushed in, faces set and tense. Their arrival sliced through the atmosphere like a knife, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. "Agent Mitchell. You need to step aside," one of them said, pushing through the crowd. "What is going on?" Mitchell countered, but the tension in her voice hinted she already sensed this was escalating far beyond her authority. "We have orders," the leader stated, jaw tight. "The situation is compromised. We need immediate control, and the subjects must be quarantined for their own safety." "Quarantined?" Sarah repeated, dread washing over her. What did they mean by that? Before anyone could react, the men moved quickly toward the accused. There was a flash of metal as one of them displayed a badge. "We're from Internal Affairs. We cannot let this proceed." The chaos morphed into an outright frenzy as accusations flew. "What's your agenda?" David yelled, stepping in front of Sarah protectively. Just then, the man took a deep breath as if gathering strength. "You think I'm just a pawn? There's something more. A truth that is about to unravel. This was only the beginning. If they take me away, everything changes." The entire courtroom held its breath. Could his revelation be the key to unraveling the entire plot? Or would it silence the only voice that could expose the authorities involved? As the scuffle escalated, Sarah sensed a danger approaching from all sides, understanding that the stakes were higher than mere courtroom drama. Who would survive this unyielding game? And if the truth did come out, would anyone dare believe it? The gavel fell again, slicing through the din, but the words had already been spoken. The fishnet was tightening, and no one was safe. What truth loomed in the shadows, waiting to strike? Panic erupted in the courtroom. Voices clashed as the agents moved toward the frail man, intent on pulling him from the stand. The accused shouted, "Please. You have to listen. I'm not lying." Mitchell stayed rooted, eyes darting between the man, the agents, and Sarah, who looked like she was about to detonate from the tension. "You need to let him speak," she demanded, stepping forward. "Agent Mitchell," the leader warned, "this is a matter of national security. We don't have time for theatrics." The audience buzzed with uncertainty. David's heart raced. What sort of national security? What do we need protecting from? His voice sliced through the crowd, making heads turn and whispers swell. "Stand down, David," Mitchell urged, her voice strained. "We don't know who we're up against." The room felt like a high-wire act, each moment more treacherous than the last. As the agents closed in, the accused's eyes darted to Sarah's again. "You don't realize how deep this goes. If you let them take me." His voice trailed off, horror etched on his face. There was a rumble of uncertainty in the audience. "Let us hear him," came an elderly woman's voice, quiet yet powerful. "He is scared. If he is telling the truth." Before anything further could happen, the lights in the courtroom flickered and then went out completely. Gasps and a few shrieks filled the void. "Someone," Mitchell barked, but her words were swallowed in the chaos. In the darkness, the sounds of commotion took on an almost surreal quality. The distant thump of footsteps, the shuffling of bodies, muffled voices blending into a single resonant noise. Heartbeats raced like drums in the chaos, as Sarah instinctively grasped David's arm tighter, feeling his muscles tense beside her. Then, in a spear of contrast, the emergency lights kicked in, casting an eerie glow over the startlingly pale faces of the crowd. Shadows danced along the walls, painting the courtroom in ominous streaks of light. "Stay together," shouted Mitchell as she maneuvered to Sarah and David's side. "We need to get him out of here." But even she could see that getting out was not the plan. It had all spiraled into a larger scheme. "What is happening?" Sarah's voice trembled, the fear almost unbearable. "The syndicate is making their move," whispered the accused, his voice trembling yet resolute. "What I know could bring them down, but not if they take me away." Before anyone could react further, a loud crash echoed from the back of the room, sending everyone scrambling. An agent fell to the ground, clutching his head. From the confusion, another figure emerged, a woman, wild-eyed and clad in black, stood framed against the shadows. "Enough! You're all in danger!" she shouted, her voice fierce and captivating. "The truth is buried within walls thicker than you imagine. I can expose it, but we need to leave now." All eyes turned to her, a bright flame in the darkened chaos. But before anyone could process her words, a shot rang out. The deafening crack sent everyone to the floor, urgency spiraling into panic. In that instant, Sarah's mind raced. Who was this woman, and was her warning the key to everything? Would the courtroom become their grave, or could they escape the web closing in around them? As the dust began to clear, Sarah felt both fear and a flicker of hope igniting inside her. The fight was on against the unseen forces pulling strings in the shadows. And with that, she realized she was standing on the precipice of a truth that could change everything, but would they survive long enough to reveal it? The gunshot echoed, hanging heavy in the air like a fog, chilling every nerve in the room. For a second, time seemed to freeze. Sarah's heart pounded, drowning out the world around her. She could barely comprehend the chaos unfolding. It was as if a nightmare was spilling out into reality. David hit the ground beside her, his body a protective shield instinctively covering her. Mitchell was on her feet, eyes scanning for threats, hair on end. The accused man was frozen, shock etching deeper lines into his face. From the corner of her eye, Sarah watched as the woman in black became a blur, turning to shout at the agents, who were now scrambling to regain control of the chaos. "Get out of here! Now!" The urgency in her voice pierced through the chaos, igniting a spark of courage deep within Sarah. The instinct was primal. They had to run. "Over there." Sarah pointed to a side exit. The emergency lights flickered unsteadily, creating a strobe effect that made the entire room feel like a scene from a horror film. Panic spread like fire, and the crowd surged toward the exit, a chaotic mixture of fear and adrenaline. "Stay close!" Mitchell shouted, diving toward the accused and grabbing him by the arm, her voice commanding through the frenzy. "We can't lose him." "Wait!" Sarah cried, catching up to them. "What about the woman?" "She'll catch up. We need to get him out of here." Mitchell's face was grim, but they all shared a look of understanding. Survival came first. As they bolted for the exit, another shot rang out. It shattered the emergency thick air, landing too close for comfort. Nobody stopped to look back. They pushed through the door, lunging into the narrow hallway just outside the courtroom. The sound of shouting echoed as the confusion behind them spilled into the corridor. "Keep moving," David urged, his voice strained. The hallway was dimly lit, and the air was thick with tension. Sarah felt a cold sweat trickle down her spine. She could hear the distant sirens wailing, approaching fast. They were running out of time. "Which way?" she gasped, breathless, as they skidded to a stop at a junction of corridors. "The stairs." Mitchell pointed, leading the charge. They hurried up the stairs, panic-stricken yet determined. Each step felt as if they were climbing toward the surface of a boiling sea. As they reached the next floor, the sound of heavy footsteps grew louder behind them. Mitchell said something, but it was drowned out by the rush of adrenaline pounding in Sarah's ears. All she could think about was getting away, making it to safety, but what was safety in that moment? Suddenly, the door at the end of the hallway burst open, and the woman in black rushed through with a wild look in her eyes. "This way!" She beckoned urgently, pointing toward a window at the far end of the corridor. Behind them, the agents were closing in. They could hear the shout of commands, but there was no time to hesitate. Sarah nodded at David, and together they sprinted toward the window, feeling the weight of the world pushing them down. Outside, chaos loomed. The street below was filled with cars, the sirens screaming. How would they even get down safely? But they didn't have time to think. Adrenaline surged, and they leapt toward the open window despite the uncertainty of what awaited them. The moment was a blur until time slowed again. Sarah felt herself falling, and in that split second, she wondered. Had they just stepped into freedom or into a greater trap? Then she hit the ground, rolling to absorb the impact, the concrete biting cold against her skin. Panic and determination mingled within her. She had no idea if David was with her or if the agents would catch up. All Sarah could do was push forward. In that heart-pounding moment, they had escaped the courtroom, but shadows lingered close at their heels. Answers lay ahead, but danger met them with every step. "Did you hear that?" Mitchell pulled them closer as they crouched behind a parked car. "They're moving in. We need to figure out who we can trust and fast." But as the sounds of pursuit drew closer, a chilling realization settled in. The fight was far from over, and the truth they sought felt buried deeper than ever. "Will we even find out what's really going on?" Sarah's whispered question hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty. A figure emerged from the shadows, striding toward them with purpose. It was hard to tell if they were friend or foe. "Who's there?" David's voice, shaky yet firm, almost drowned in the roar of impending chaos. With the atmosphere thick with suspense, everything hinged on the truth that lay just out of reach. Would they uncover it together, or would they find themselves buried beneath a mountain of lies? The figure stepped into a flickering streetlight, its face obscured by shadows but accentuated by an unmistakable confidence. Sarah squinted against the light, heart racing. It was hard to trust anyone now, especially someone who had appeared out of nowhere while they were still reeling from nearly being shot. "Who are you?" David repeated, his voice steadier now, though tension hung like a thick fog around them. The figure smirked, a flash of white teeth breaking through the darkness. "You really think you can outrun this? I'm not here to hurt you." With a reverberating hush, Sarah felt that flicker of hope. "Then what do you want?" "Information," the stranger replied, stepping closer, enough for the light to catch the edges of a worn leather jacket. "And a way out for all of us." The heaviness in the air thickened as the distant sounds of sirens drew nearer, gnawing at the edges of their resolve. Mitchell grasped Sarah's arm, squeezing tightly. "We don't have much time. What do you know?" "The woman in black, the one who led you out, isn't who you think she is," the figure said, eyes glinting with urgency. "She's here for the accused, but she's on a different mission than saving him." "What do you mean?" Sarah's voice trembled, both intrigued and terrified. "She's connected to something bigger than this case, a conspiracy that goes deep. If we don't move now, we will all end up just like him." David's expression darkened as the weight of those words sunk in. "You think we can trust you?" "Trust is a luxury we can't afford right now. But if you want to live, you need to follow me. The agents are closing in faster than you think." Nothing felt certain anymore, yet Sarah felt the urgency pulse through her veins. "Lead the way." Without hesitation, the figure turned sharply down an alley, leading them through the maze of shadows and ill-lit corners. They moved quickly, hearts pounding, the adrenaline propelling them as their surroundings morphed into a blur of dark spaces and distant echoes. The moment they reached an abandoned building, the stranger paused, glancing back to assess the area. "This way, hurry," they urged, bursting through a door that creaked ominously. Inside, the darkness was thick, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. The dim light from a flickering bulb overhead barely illuminated the cramped space filled with forgotten debris. Sarah felt the weight of anxiety swell in her chest. "What now?" "Sit tight," the figure said. "We need to lay low until the coast is clear." "But what about the woman? What are you not telling us?" Sarah pressed, her thoughts racing, grappling with each revelation. "Everything you think you know is about to change. Trust me, you'll wish you hadn't gotten involved in this." Mitchell whispered to Sarah, "This is madness. We can't get stuck here. We need answers." Before Sarah could respond, a loud crash echoed from the direction they had come. Footsteps pounded against the pavement outside, shadows darting past the broken windows. The agents were searching, breathing down their necks, narrowing the distance. Panic bubbled inside Sarah as the truth began to settle like lead in her stomach. Every choice led them deeper into danger. "What are we going to do?" The figure turned, a determined glint in their eyes. We fight, or we find a way out. No more running. As the door rattled ominously, Sarah could feel the suffocating uncertainty wash over her. They had come this far, but the real battle was just beginning. Just then, a distant voice cried out, threatening to pull them all back into the abyss. Sarah! David's alarm blurred the lines. She turned, fear crashed over her like a wave. What happens if we can't escape? But she didn't have time to ponder. An answer would have to wait, as the rattle led to a heavy thud. The door burst open, revealing agents looking deeper and angrier. Stay behind me! Mitchell shouted, instinctively putting herself in front of them. It was a moment too late. Chaos erupted once more, throwing the fragile hope they clung to into disarray. Everything had led to this point. And now, as darkness loomed just beyond, the reality hit hard. Would they find the truth hidden beneath the lies? Or had they stepped unwittingly into a trap far worse than what awaited them outside? The room vibrated with chaos, shouts, footsteps, and the staccato sound of anger echoed in the dark, oppressive space like thunder. Sarah felt the adrenaline rush through her veins, filtering the fear and uncertainty as her heart raced. There was no turning back now. Whether it was fight or flight, she had to confront whatever lay ahead. Mitchell stood firm, her posture radiating determination. David, still by her side, looked ready to move. The agents surged at them, sharp silhouettes against the dim light, their urgency palpable. We can't let them take you. David shouted, his voice raised above the swirling chaos. But as the agents rushed forward, Sarah clutched at her throat, feeling that lump of fear threaten to choke her. Just as Mitchell took a step forward to shield Sarah, the figure in the leather jacket erupted into action. They surged past the agents, flowing like water through the strangling grip of fear in the room. Follow me! They yelled, urgency lacing each syllable. Before Mitchell could react, they dashed through a door leading deeper into the abandoned building. It was like an unlit path ahead of them, beckoning and yet treacherous. With barely a second to breathe, Sarah pulled David along, her instincts guiding her into the unknown. Go, go, go! She urged, and in one fluid motion, they all slipped through the door, leaving mounting noise behind them. The new room was narrow, laden with dust and memories, dimly illuminated by flickering bulbs overhead. Keep quiet! The figure whispered sharply, eyes darting toward the entrance they had just escaped. Who are you? Sarah managed to murmur, the question bursting from her lips amid the charged atmosphere. Why are you helping us? What do you know? My name is Casey, the figure said, lowering their voice. And if we survive this, you'll understand. Their eyes took on a fierce intensity that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. What does that mean? Sarah pressed, desperation edging her tone. There's no time. You need to trust me, Casey replied, casting furtive glances at the door. Everything you think has been happening is part of a larger game. You weren't supposed to survive this long. Just then, the distant sounds of agents shouting melded with the pounding of footsteps coming closer again. The tension thickened, heavy like a fog that threatened to swallow them whole. Why are they hunting us? David asked, voice firm but shaken. That man from the courtroom? The one who spoke out. What did he mean when he said we'd all be in danger? He was telling the truth. Casey pulled a small gadget from their jacket, fingers steady as they pressed a button. A low hum filled the air, and Sarah felt an electric charge rush around her. This will block signals. They can't track us for a while. But what is really going on? Sarah insisted, a fraying thread of patience snapped. We deserve answers. For a moment, Casey hesitated, eyes darting around as if weighing the gravity of what they would reveal. Fine, they said, voice low and urgent, but you need to know this could change everything. The operation you got pulled into was directed from the top, involving corruption and power plays. People you think you can trust aren't who they appear to be. The syndicate wanted to bury the truth, and by using you as their scapegoat, they aimed to redirect attention away from themselves. Wait, Mitchell interrupted, shaking her head, you mean they wanted to frame us? Yes, but it's bigger than that. They're playing chess with lives, and you were pawns in their game. Now, if you want to be free, you have to see the bigger picture. Before anyone could respond, a loud banging against the door echoed through the room, shaking Sarah out of her thoughts. Get back. Casey urged, hastily searching through the scattered debris for an exit. As they did so, Sarah felt her heart race, the shadow of danger looming large behind them, but deep within her, a spark ignited a sense of purpose. She looked at David with something that resembled determination. If this is part of their game, then we need to take it back. We have to turn it against them. Are you out of your mind? David shot back, but beneath the fear, she could see that familiar gleam of hope urging for action. Yes. This ends now, together, Sarah insisted, voice stronger, with a fire igniting in their hearts. Sarah and David exchanged a look of understanding. This was their last chance to reclaim their lives. Casey paused, eyes narrowing as the banging intensified. Then let us make sure they hear us coming. Time to shatter their illusions and show them the truth. The pounding on the door reached a frantic rhythm, and Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline as Casey pulled a concealed weapon from their jacket. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about unraveling the sinister reality and seeking justice. The door threatened to burst, splintering wood and urgency mingling as a final threat echoed through the room. Let us go. Casey shouted. Whatever lies ahead, we carve our own destiny. The door flew open, and agents flooded into the room, but instead of backing down, Sarah, Casey, and David charged forward, ready to fight for their truth. The courtroom drama had twisted into a full-fledged war, but this time, they held power. As chaos ensued, screams and gunfire echoed. Sarah knew that this was where everything that had happened up until now coalesced into a single moment. They were no longer running, they were reclaiming their stories. Whatever it took, however dark the path ahead might be, they would confront the monsters lurking behind those shadows. For Sarah, this was not just about survival anymore, it was about standing up to the darkness that had tried to engulf her life. Together, they would fight until the truth blared like a beacon against the encroaching night. They surged ahead, resolute and unyielding. The fire inside was lit, and as they charged into battle, a singular thought echoed in Sarah's mind: the end of lies had begun, and the dawn of truth was finally within reach. Now is your moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this explosive ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Your engagement is crucial to our community. Let us uncover all the truths together.